we're just days away from the most important day on the student calendar here at the University of Pretoria. The SRC elections are set to kickstart on the 19th of August, which is next week, Wednesday, and you will have an opportunity as the students to vote for your chosen candidates for this year's SRC election. Alongside me are candidates all vying for your vote for the position of Facilities, Safety and Securities members of the SRC. And let me introduce them in a few, but hello, I'm your candidate, or your host rather, Tsegofatse Makola. And alongside me is furthest from myself, Jason. Next to Jason, we have Kazimla. And next to Kazimla, we have Kamokhelo. Thank you so much for joining us for this debate. A reminder of some of the rules, just so that you know what's going on. The first one is please ensure that you're respectful at all times, as no discrimination will be tolerated. For time purposes, please try to keep your responses as brief as possible. Just a rundown of what will happen. A mic will be afforded to you, of which you'll have a question to answer. If any of your fellow candidates has a response to what you've just provided or a response that you've given, they will have an opportunity to raise their hand, of which the mic will then be passed over to them, and then they will have an opportunity to respond. A reminder to keep your responses as brief as possible, as we are short for time. Try to keep your responses in a way that does not interrupt whoever has the mic, and most importantly, let's have fun and make sure that we engage as much as possible. Seems pretty self-explanatory, right?
Definitely.
Cool, let's get started. I'm going to start with you, Kazimla, since you have the mic. We know that students face a whole range of issues here at the University of Pretoria. One of them being the lack of, affordable student accommodation, among others. If you were elected into this portfolio, how would you ease the concerns raised by students, especially regarding student accommodation access?
Thank you for that question, Seho. This is a problem that is perpetual. Every year we have a constant problem for student accommodation. I think it is not enough just to get one student into accommodation, whether it's supplied by a church or someone. It needs to be fought on a systemic level. And I think that the university must leverage on the benefit that the word accredited is given to private accommodations, right? And making them meet a certain standard. So therefore, introduce a new system where there is a ratio, right? For every 100 students that are able to enroll into that residence, there must be at least one student from a previously disadvantaged background that can be able to stay there. This will ensure that there is a set amount of accommodations that will be given to students that are not able to afford student accommodation, or maybe they can't be able to commute back and forth from home, for example. So instead of acting shocked every year about this problem, about student accommodation, we need to be able to provide a solution that is can be able to meet the need and satisfy it. A second solution that I have as well is that, that's actually already in place, is that some students are able to get accommodation through tax res, right? And the problem there is more access to that knowledge. So people don't know that they can go to the DSA, to the university, and ask them for accommodation, and then their matter would be heard, and hopefully they will be put in. I'm saying that we need to exhaust all our options and create even more through private accommodation to be able to satisfy the need that students have every single year.
So I'm seeing quite a bit of nods from both candidates. I'm going to ask you to pass the mic to Kamokhelo. Kamokhelo, you've heard some of the solutions raised by Kazimla in terms of, the whole issue of the NSFAS accreditation accommodation, as well as just ensuring that students are aware of what options are available to them. Do you think that these are viable solutions? But also, if you had to be elected into this portfolio, what would you propose?
Okay, so we firstly need to know that students need to feel safe and supported, both off and on campus. Ne? So safety is not just about locks and guards, it's also about mental health, right? So my plan is to have like proper safety checks on off-campus housing before it gets approved, not after students complain. Ne? So we also have to have trained student safety reps in every residence who can spot problems early. So it's also unfair for residents to say it is NSFAS accredited, and then they now demand top-ups, med top-ups from this unprivileged student. For the fact that these students depend on NSFAS, it's very alarming. So now for you to say now on their NSFAS, they have to bath, they have to eat, they also have to dress. then you expect them to pay maybe 500 top up in a basic sharing room. It's very unfair because now this person is sharing their personal space with someone, and you still want them to add something on top of what NSFAS pays you. Understand?
I'd like you to pass the mic over to Jason. Jason, you've heard some of the concerns raised by your fellow candidates, some of them including this whole NSFAS top-up that seems to be a recurring issue, specifically for students that are entering student accommodations. How would you plan to address this if you had to be elected into this portfolio?
Well, regarding the students on a NSFAS and like the NSFAS accredited facilities or like and residences and all that, my idea is obviously that the university would have to hold them up to a certain standard, and then if they don't meet those standards, then they're going to get like benefits from the university, let's say. So like maybe the university can foot the bill for these like residences if they meet that standard, which allows students who are underprivileged to like remain there without having to top up and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid, viable solution. I'm seeing quite a bit of nods across the bench. Kazimla, do you have anything to add, or would you, propose any alternative solution that ought to be brought about to ensure that accommodation is accessible and also affordable for students?
I think what Jason is saying is actually building on my point, which is the university leveraging on the word accredited. And there must be requirements that are met. And I'm saying that it shouldn't only be safety regarding the facilities in these particular residences. We mostly know that they are up to standard, but there must be that ratio that must be introduced now. And as Kama was saying, that top-ups must definitely be illegal. The rate that you put at the beginning of the year must be concurrent all throughout, so that parents and people that are maybe even paying for their own school fees, are not shocked by these top-up fees, which can oust people from their living residences. And as well, having on top of that word accredited residences, because a lot of off-campus residences use this, and to ensure that parents back home or people coming into the university have the confidence that this residence has the ability to meet the needs of UP students, right? So it builds confidence in the eyes of the public, but now the university needs to leverage on that word, on that standard, to be able to serve the students where they are, and to also ensure that no accredited residence has top-up fees. So if you have top-up fees, you are automatically disqualified and you cannot retain that status.
Yeah, I'd like you to pass the mic over to Kamohelo. I mean, these are some of the concerns raised, but also solutions thereof. Just close us off. If you had to be elected into this portfolio, the whole issue of access to affordable accommodation is still going to be an issue that you will be faced with if elected into this portfolio. How do you plan to address this?
Okay, firstly, I would like to say the UP have to know these races. They have to do a research on these races, because you'd find that the RS is accredited, but when a student or maybe a first year moves in, they tell them that NSFAS will sort everything. And when a student, after signing the lease, they now tell that you have 600 top up, and then for you to cancel this lease, you have to pay maybe 6,000 to cancel it. This person is a first year student. They don't know anything. You are depressing them. As a ground force, we had to fight many such issues around Hetfield, where racist, they trapped students inside to say, no, if you don't pay top up, you are not going to leave. You understand? So I think it is very important for NSFAS to know these races and hold them accountable. To say if you are accredited and then you take a large number of first years, it's more like you're taking advantage of them. Now they will have to go beyond their means to ask for money at home, knowing very well, or they depend on NSFAS. You understand?
Yeah.
Now they're putting pressure on the students. Yes.
I'd like you to keep the mic. You know, we're talking about facilities. Already we've spoken about the issue of accommodation, but I'd like us to talk about water and electricity. This is something that often affects a lot of students that are living in and around of Hatfield, and they're often affected by water shortages, electricity outages, and that often affects their ability to work or to study here at the University of Pretoria. If you had to be elected into this portfolio, how would you curb some of these issues that some of these students face?
Okay, thank you for that question. So we have to know that students can't stop load shedding or water cuts, but the university can be ready for them. So a tracking system to students can see where students can see repairs and actually, a tracking system so students can see when repairs are actually scheduled, and backup study spaces with guaranteed power during outages, especially near exams. So these residents have to have a backup. They have to make sure that each and every res has a backup, electric backup and water cuts for such emergencies such as tests and exams. Yes.
I'm seeing quite a bit of nods. I'm going to allow you to pass the mic over to Jason, and then we'll get to you, Kazimla. Jason, some of the concerns raised already about, water and electricity, but also a solution by Kamohelo that, students should be aware of the, electricity and water cuts, as well as the accommodation that's provided by the university should have some sort of backup alternative that's available to them. Do you think that this is a viable solution? But also, if elected into this portfolio, what would you suggest?
Well, yeah, I think regarding backup electricity, I think that's a very good idea. I think there should be generators at all the residences, like even at different campuses. So like there's no point where like students have to struggle with like doing tests and stuff online. And then also regarding water, I think the university should provide free water to students when the water's out, like just drinking water even, because otherwise, like you have to buy water yourself, and I think that's quite unfair to the poor student to have to buy something that's a necessity.
Kazimla, some of the solutions raised by your fellow candidates, ensuring that the university provides water, but also ensuring that the residences have backup water and electricity. Do you think that these are viable solutions? Do you think it's practical for this to be done? And also, what would you propose if elected into this portfolio?
Thank you, Teho. I definitely agree with my colleagues. I think they've made great points. One thing I can definitely say is that even though we do not preempt disasters, we can always prepare for them adequately. And when we're talking about electricity and water, I have found living in a tax res that they are able to meet the needs of students, and they have systems in place to ensure when those things happen, not if, when those things happen, they are able to ensure that the lights are still running, that students can still shower, that the water systems are still working. So my thing is that the problem clearly lies with off-campus residences, right? So to be able to manage this issue at a ground level, I would say, and on a systemic level as well. So on a ground level, I would say the solution that I propose is that for when there are water outages, right, that the truck that brings water to communities outside of Hatfield must also come to each and every residence. Now, this is a solution that is already there, right? It is happening. We know that back at home, when there's water shedding, we are able to go to the truck with full of water, bring our buckets, and then fill up from there. Now, this is a solution that we have to propose to the mayor of Tshwane and the councillor of Ward 56 to be able to ensure that the needs of students are met, right? And then on a wider scale, long-term solution, I believe that there must be JoJo tanks and water reserves that will be able to meet the needs of the students living on off-campus residences. I think that it is important that the university also has a factor to play into this. Students don't become not students once they get into their own residences. So it's unfair to say that the university doesn't have any responsibility towards them and ensuring that those residences have those buckets put in place, right? Because preparation is everything. And when it comes to electricity, there are actually LED light bulbs, right, that can be bought and installed, that when there is power, the battery in them charges, right? And then when the power goes out, the light is still there because that battery is now put in place. So now that battery inside is the power source. Now, if this is not innovative idea, that product is already there. Now it's a question of implementation, putting it in place. And I agree with Kamukhelo that especially study areas, they must have Wi-Fi, they must have power, they must have the plugs must be working. And we see that on campus that need is not. The solution is already there. It's been installed. Now, when students go back home, that is where the problem lies. And making sure, again, when the university gives out this status of accredited, that those off-campus residences can be able to ensure that they are prepared for disaster. This is called disaster management, and we need to be able to make sure that we are prepared to serve students, we are able to meet the students' needs even in the face of disaster.
I think Kazimla is mentioning some very crucial solutions, basically allowing for the university to be more preemptive in knowing what the concerns of the students are going to be. I'd like Jason to just answer the next question about safety. I mean, I think we've spoken quite extensively about the facilities and how, you know, within each of your manifestos, you plan to address any sort of facility concerns that students may experience. But safety is a big issue that students face on an everyday basis. We live in a country where gender-based violence is rife. We live in a country where just violence and assault is quite rife. And this often does not exclude students, specifically here at the University of Pretoria. If elected into this position, how would you ensure that students are aware of these issues, but most of all, that these issues are adequately addressed?
Well, to start off with, I know, especially around Hatfield campus, that like a lot of the girls who walk past, like who go to the residence and all that, have to deal with getting harassed right by the university, as well as like, you know, girls who have to go to the car train station and girls who just live away, like further away from the campus. So ideally, my idea, or I think other candidates have mentioned in their manifesto and stuff, is to like expand the green route that usually just goes from the Hillcrest residences to Hatfield, and expand it so like maybe it's further west by like Sunnyside and Arcadia and stuff like that, so students are able to, you know, like walk safely with like knowing that there's security around. And then for girls and like even guys who have been subject to gender-based violence, like they need to be made more aware of the psychological services, like the mental health services we have at the university, and also to improve the mental health services at the university through like hiring more psychologists. I know we have students who do psychology at the university. They can also like do it as a part of like, you know, their studies, and like work there and just help students who like going through these issues, like, and allow them to be able to speak out, as well as for having like events like for these students that have gone through this trauma to like just like speak with each other and like talk openly about their experiences in a more safe environment.
You're raising some crucial solutions there. I'd like you to pass the mic to Kazimla. Kazimla, you've heard some of the solutions that are raised by Jason in terms of allowing for more awareness on gender-based violence as well as violence within the Hatfield area, but also ensuring that the green route is expanded. Do you think that these are practical and viable solutions? But also, if elected into this portfolio, what would you propose?
I definitely think these are viable options that my colleague here has said, Jason. Green Route was actually an initiative that was spearheaded by SASCO following a horrible traumatic event that happened on the or near the university campus. And that just shows that we are working tirelessly to ensure the safety of students. And as I said yesterday, safety is not a privilege, but a right. And now, even though it was the initiative and they were spearheaded by SASCO, I think that we definitely need to build onto the green route and ensure that popular routes that are used frequently by students can be able to ensure that there are personnel that are able to ensure their safety around Hatfield. Now, just building onto that, we have staff and security, Mama no malume, at gates of the university and patrolling around Hatfield. Now, my solution to this problem of, for example, one would be prevention. And I think when we're talking about prevention, we're talking about information, having GBV talks so that we can be able to create a culture that is known that we do not condone GBV or any crime on campus, but especially GBV, because we must not think that we are exempt from the social ills that South Africa faces just because we are, for example, in Hatfield or on Groenkloof campus, right? We are still facing such issues, and having those talks will be able to ensure that UP sets a culture that does not tolerate any violence against women, children, or members of the LGBTQ community. Another solution, and now building back to the green route and Mama no malume that are patrolling around, we need to give them the skills through workshops, right, to be able to tend to students that come to them in hysterical because something has happened to them, how to be able to calm them down, to be able to ensure that they have the information to give to the students of, okay, this has happened, let's go to the police station. And then when you are there, you'll be able to do 1, 2, and 3 on how to be able to place a docket of for investigation of a crime, right? This will ensure that there is an increase of reporting that is successful, that these cases that happen get to the police station, right, in the first place. And through that system, we can get the data of how many crimes were committed in and around university campuses, not only Hatfield, but Groenkloof, Prinshof, Onderstepoort, right? And at what times, what are the trends, so that we even have criminologists on campus. These are lecturers that have degrees on that specialize on crime, right? And they can be able to help us to provide solutions and preemptive solutions that we can be able to install into the ground. Now, this is a practical example. All it needs is a workshop, and that is very, very practical way to be able to meet this problem. Another solution I have is to create a WhatsApp line, right, with all the security staff are able to get notifications from there. So then when I am crying for help, for example, in a bathroom, when I know that my perpetrator is right outside, I can quickly call for help so that the nearest person or security staff closest to me can come and aid me. This will help and witness for witness statements, and also to ensure that reporting gets to the police services. We need to be able to have interdepartmental and interinstitutional collaboration to ensure that this big issue of GBV and crime is met, to ensure the safety of all students. These are just some of the examples and solutions that I have. There are more, but we'll circle back on that.
Yeah. I'd like you to pass the mic to Kamohelo. Kamohelo, you've heard some of the solutions raised. If you were elected into this portfolio, how would you plan to curb this issue of gender-based violence, but in general, just violence in the Hatfield area?
Okay, so first thing, the issue of Green Road. That initiative, I think it is exclusive at some point. So because we have students of TMM lots, we have students of Next Gen, we have students of Festival Edge. Those students have to be included as well. You understand? We cannot say we have Green Road that is protecting students, but then we neglect over 1,000 registered UP students. So if we can at least have the other issue of the security personnel, we cannot put one security per street, because criminals are very strategic. So at least we can also enhance the security personnel. At least have 4, at least 1 at the corner and the other at the corner, and 2 in between. And then the other solution is CCTVs. They're not going to help us with the ground activities, but they are going to help us know and be able to identify high risk areas to say, okay, so we can see that students are being marked in the streets. Understand? So yes, and the other thing of GBV, I think we should have an office here in varsity, the office where we are going to encourage students through the society of GBV to say there's an office where you can go and we can talk to you, we have support, and then we can have maybe hire people who are trained to deal with victims of such incidents. Yes, that's
Yeah, I think you've all raised very crucial solutions that you hope to implement should you be elected into this position. I'd like you to move the mic over to Kazimla. Kazimla, a bit earlier on, you were talking about collaboration. Now, I'd like us to talk about collaboration in terms of how you, if elected into this position, would collaborate with other stakeholders in ensuring that there's safety and security for students that are at the University of Pretoria that are often in and around the city or even surrounding areas of the university.
Yes, collaboration, I think, is definitely the solution when facing the mammoth of a problem such as GBV. As I said, the police department needs to be involved along with the university, along with the residences on campus and off of campus. And then a stakeholder that I'd introduce is social workers, so that when a student is, maybe they have already given their statement, and now the reality is that studies carry on. Now, how is that student able to live with that reality and also be able to write a test the next day, for example? This shows that there is a definite need for psychosocial remedies and for example, solutions. My colleague here was speaking about psychologists, and as we know that the university produces so many psychologists on a yearly basis. Now we need to be able to maximize on that, on the graduates that come from UP, to ensure that if they have the qualifications, they can be hired by the university to be able to provide psychological help to students on the ground. And this is not only limited to GBV, but to all crimes that students face, and maybe even the hardship of just studies in and of itself. Another solution is within the police department to be able to know that there is a GBV unit where a person can just simply go in and have the luxury, and no, actually not the luxury, the right of privacy, because we do not, if you are a person, maybe some victims do not want their name screamed out. They want their privacy. They don't want everybody to know. And I think that right to choice must be given effect to. So those are the stakeholders that must be introduced. The solution of cameras, I think, is a very practical one. I think if our university can install screens, we can definitely install cameras along routes. And Ukamogelo was talking about the green route, and I think that when I disagree with him is that I think the green route is an incredible initiative, which I am proud that SASCO has introduced. Now, do I think that we can expand on it? Because I think that he wasn't particularly saying that it is a bad initiative. He was rather saying that we need to build on this, in which I agree. We need to be able to agree, because as society changes, we need to be able to keep up with those changes to ensure that that safety is given to all students. Now, going back, that he also mentioned that it shouldn't be only to tax res accommodations, right? And I agree that it shouldn't only be limited to those people. Even someone that is going back home, for that example, and maybe they live in Silver Lakes, for example, in that this is the where interdepartmental work comes into play, because that person is able to go to a security guard, and that security guard is able to take them to the police station. That police station is supposed to have a van to be able to ensure that that student can be escorted home safely and securely. So when it comes to interdepartmental work, collaboration in and of itself, I think that is definitely the solution to our problems when it comes to safety and security. And I don't want to diminish the importance of even facilities in that matter, because our portfolio doesn't only limit us into the students' safety, for example, because we are there to make sure that students don't only survive, but they must be able to thrive. And when it comes to facilities, our facilities must be able to meet the ambitions that we have as UP students to fly at UP. Now, when we're talking about the problem of Marinsky plugs and not being adequate and not working for nearly 2 years, that is a perpetual problem. It might not be a safety issue, but it's definitely an issue regarding your safety of your academics and the safety of you securing that degree, which is what we are here for in the first place. So thank you for your question. And yeah, I think we must also not forget on the part of facilities as well.
I'm seeing quite a bit of nods, but I see Kamohelo has a response to that. Kamohelo, same question posed to you. How would you ensure that collaboration happens under your portfolio in order to ensure that the safety as well as facilities or concerns thereof of students are adequately addressed?
Right. Firstly, my plan is to have the faster disciplinary hearing for GBV cases with clear time limits. Yeah? We have to have the trained staff for reporting, not just form to fill the forms. So we have to do the partnership with outside organizations like the GBV support groups and legal aid, because they have more experience in dealing with such cases. Ne? So we also have to have public reports on how many cases were reported and resolved. So the university, they can't hide behind the silence. So this will also encourage students to come and say, no, we are ahead as victims. We can talk with the university, we are supported. Even if we have a victim, maybe as a first year, they are experiencing this GBV back at home, they know that we have support here in varsity. We have experienced people. As my colleague has said, we can collaborate with the GBV support aid to know that these people are very experienced and they are going to help us. You understand? It makes that easy for us as the university to support students by collaborating with the other organizations outside who are very experienced. And we can also learn as the SRC, the incoming SRC from them. Yes.
I'm seeing quite a bit of nods also coming from Jason. Jason, your thoughts on what's just been shared from both your fellow candidates in terms of some of the solutions that ought to be proposed, specifically in terms of collaboration with yourselves if elected into this portfolio, as well as other stakeholders, both within and outside the university.
Well, obviously, when it comes to reporting like any violence they've experienced, I think it should be private. Like let's say you can just go in privately. Like you don't have to they can't announce it to anyone that you're doing this, and then you can it makes them just to feel a bit safer, with just reporting and all that. And then the university should work with the police force in Pretoria on this matter, you're allowed to go to the police station, report privately, the police force can't announce it or anything. And then also collaborate with maybe psychology related students regarding just being able to discuss any problems they have, and as well as discuss with each other and all that.
Yeah, I see. You've raised quite a few crucial issues. I see quite a bit of nods on the left of yourself. Could you please pass the mic to Kazimla? I saw Kazimla had her hand up. Just close off this whole topic on collaboration, because I think collaboration is going to be quite crucial, specifically for this portfolio, as you'll be having to collaborate with other members of the SRC, but also very key stakeholders in addressing some of the very important concerns of students. So just close us off on this issue in terms of collaboration.
Yes, I think Collaboration, as I said, I think I spoke extensively on it when I last spoke. I just wanted to highlight that when we are speaking here, we kind of assuming that these crimes and, for example, the occurrence of GBV only happens outside of university campus, right? And I think that, again, speaking to the problem of facilities, when I was walking on Monday, I was actually in the piazza going back home, I saw approximately 6 lampposts not working. And I think that is utterly unacceptable. We cannot have places in the university where it is dark and therefore incite fear in people, because crime does happen and we make the mistake sometimes and thinking that it only happens outside. But I'm saying that our facilities, whether it's street lights, making sure that cameras in the University of Pretoria are able to patrol and make sure that if something does happen, we have the face of that perpetrator. We can be able to send those documents over to the police department, again speaking to the solution of collaboration. So I think that also we must not also think that the dangers outside. We must work towards safety, being definite that it is definitely safe inside the University of Pretoria, making sure that the green rot starts within the university. So even if someone is walking alone back at home, as soon as they leave that lecture hall, as soon as they leave that library, there is a route that they can use to get back home where they can be confident that they will reach the gate of their home. So that was just my contribution.
Yeah, I'd like to ask the final question. I think, could you pass the mic over to Jason? I mean, a huge part of your portfolio, if elected in, will be communication. Yes. You're going to be having to speak to students quite often about all the things that affect them. Some of the things that we're seeing on campus are construction, for example, that's happening in and around campus. Certain parking bays are currently closed. These are issues that directly affect students. How would you ensure that you communicate all of this accordingly to students in a way that is easy for them to understand, but in a way that also makes them aware of exactly what is happening in and around of campus?
Okay, so regarding that, I think we can work with the MMC portfolio, like the member of that portfolio, to use social media, such as WhatsApp, even Facebook, Instagram, so on, and then just let's say every week or so, actually have a list of any upcoming repairs and maintenance work that's going to be done in each area of the university and all the campuses for every student. And then just to give students just to make them more aware of okay, so I won't be able to park there at that parking, so I had to go to different parking. And then also maybe regarding the maintenance and repairs itself, it could be moved to maybe times let's say the breaks, the holidays, maybe so it's not interfering as much with the student activity on the campus.
Yeah, I'd like you to pass the mic over to Kazimla. Kazimla, you aware of some of the student issues that students currently face, facility issues like parking bays being closed, or some of the doors in certain buildings not working, or also just other concerns. You've mentioned street lights not working. How would you ensure that this is adequately communicated towards students, that they are aware of exactly what is happening in and around of campus?
Amazing question, and I think this is a vital question because information is vital. It's important, it's necessary, and if you can't communicate something, how can anything be done in that regard? So there's 2 ways that communication should go. First, must go to the students, informing them of any problems that are being worked on, any construction, for example, any repairs that are being made within the university and around the university, so to ensure that students are informed that, for example, parking bays are being worked on and maybe they're getting improvements done on them, These are good things that are being done. And then the second one, regarding the street lights, for example, the communication from students to SRC to management must also be created, and that's what I am also advocating for, and what I will put in place if I would be chosen to be put into SRC, because I am only one person. I cannot be able to know what is happening on Groenkloof campus when I'm not on Groenkloof campus. So to be able to develop a website or communication base which can be able to say, this plug is not working, these street lights are not working, to ensure that repair is made swiftly and that maintenance can be informed as quick as possible, so that we can also have dates that this thing stopped working on the 3rd of April. It's now the 4th of August. How is it not repaired? So that we can hold the Department of Maintenance accountable and the university to say that it's unacceptable that these parking bays have not been opened for the last 4 months. So to be able to increase accountability, to ensure information gets to the students, and I quite like the idea that my colleague posed here, once again, speaking to the idea of collaboration within the SRC, speaking to the MMC SRC member to upload videos on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, on WhatsApp, and another one would be WhatsApp broadcasting. I mean, we see major organizations, even societies making broadcasting channels on WhatsApp. These are technologies that we can use to benefit the students, to ensure the safety of students, to ensure that safety is of utmost importance, that excellence is of utmost importance. And also speaking about collaboration yet again, when it's construction in and around Hatfield, right, or any of the university campuses, that we are able to get communication from the mayor, from the councillor, of Tshwane, to be able to get a heads up that, okay, on this day, the potholes are very deep, we're going to be having construction on on Duxbury Road, for example, so that that information is carried to the first year that doesn't know anything, for example, to the postgraduate students that needs to come and do their practicals and has a late lecture, so that it can really be an adequate system that doesn't only serve for 2027, but will be able to be put into place for generations to come. Because for me, solutions that are temporary are not solutions at all. It's only solutions that can be implemented and ensured for generations to come. Now that is a solution. We don't want just to put a bandage on a bullet wound, for example, a plaster on a bullet wound rather, but to ensure that the proper care is installed from a systemic level, so that we do not see those ugly heads of violence, of crime, of problem of facilities not working adequately, sticking up its head ever again.
I'd like you to pass the mic over to Kamokholo. Kamokholo, just close this issue off for us. We know all the issues that are currently taking place in terms of facilities. We know that currently there's construction taking place on some of the roads around campus. We know that some of the parking bays are closed. There's construction also happening on campus. Some of these concerns ought to be known to students. How would you ensure that this is done efficiently if you had to be elected into this position?
Okay, so to add on what my colleagues have already said, we have to know platforms that students use the most. We know that we engage a lot with WhatsApp. We know that students engage a lot with TikTok. So in TikTok, we can collaborate with our MMCs. And then on WhatsApp, we can have a WhatsApp community where I think now we have developed as a university, we have a big screen by the piazza there. We can have a QR code where every student can scan and join the WhatsApp community that is going to be informing students daily that certain parking is not working. There's an alternative for that. You can park by this side, you understand? And then, yeah, on the issue of communication, I think we have to mitigate using emails a lot, because they are overwhelming to students. Students engage a lot on WhatsApp because we have academics groups there. So it's easy for them to get notifications in regards of any ongoing constructions inside the campus. Yes.
Yeah, we are unfortunately short for time, but I'm going to give each of you an opportunity to kind of give an elevator pitch. Tell the students exactly why they should vote for you in this upcoming SRC election, and you have about less than 30 seconds to do so. I'm going to start with you, Kamokhelo, since you're holding the mic. Why should students vote for you in this upcoming SRC election?
Okay, so as a ground force, students know that I don't only act by statements. I act immediately on the ground. Yes, I act immediately. I think I'm familiar with students. They know. They relate a lot because I act immediately on the ground. I don't release a statement to say, we will talk to. Yes.
Yeah.
That's why they have to.
Kazimla, why should students vote for you in this upcoming SRC election?
Okay, if you don't mind, I'll look into that camera just so that I can see the student. So my name is Kazimla Adam, and I am applying for the role of FSS within the university SRC. Now, why you should vote for me is because one, I have experience. Two, I have the passion. It's not just a new thing or a new opportunity arose and now I've developed the passion for students. No, it has been backed, and that can be solved by a simple Google search. One thing that I want to implement is solutions that last, that for generations. So if you want action, if you want solutions that will last until your grandkids come to this university, then vote for me, because I am a voice for action, I'm a voice for change, and if you want innovation, if you want integrity, and if you want action, I am your person.
And finally, Jason, why should students vote for you in this upcoming SRC election?
You should vote for me, Jason, as I'll try my best to maintain a cleaner environment at all the campuses, as well as improve the safety for all students that live like at the residences and even off residence, and even have to take transport there, like to here. And also just to maintain the facilities, so they don't get to a point where they can't be repaired and they have to be replaced.
Thank you so much for taking time to join us for this debate. A reminder that these are your candidates for the position of Facilities, Safety and Security. Furthest from myself is Jason. Next to Jason, we have Kazimla. Next to Kazimla, we have Kamokhelo. And these are your candidates all vying for your vote in next week's SRC election that is set to kickstart on the 19th of August.